Good morning. I'm Greg Longini, Secretary to the Board of the Chicago Transit Authority. On May 5th, 2021, the Office of the Secretary of the Chicago Transit Board issued a notice of changed format of the CTA board and committee meetings that would take place on May 12th, 2021. On April 30th, 2021, Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, good morning, issued executive. I'm Greg Longini, Secretary to the Board of the Chicago Transit Authority. On May 5th, 2020, in effect, to address the COVID-19 pandemic in Illinois. Section 6 of the executive order continues Executive Order 2020-07 as amended by Executive Orders 2020-33 and 2020-44, allowing public meetings to proceed virtually and dispensing with the requirement in the Illinois Open Meetings Act for physical quorum. This means that the CTA public meetings occurring today will take place only virtually. Because the governor's disaster proclamation remains in effect in the state of Illinois, the meetings on May 12, 2021 are being held electronically or virtually pursuant to the amended provision of the Open Meetings Act, Section 7E, which allows for virtual public meetings while the disaster proclamation remains in effect. We are now ready to begin the Committee on Strategic Planning and Service Delivery. Chairman Irvine.
Good morning. I would like to call to order the May 12th, 2021 meeting of the Committee on Strategic Planning and Service Delivery. Would the Secretary please call the roll?
Yes. Director Alva Rosales.
Yes.
Director Miller.
Here.
Hold on a second. Director Alva Rosales, Director Miller, Director Irvine, and we have I'm sorry, I don't have my list here. Jake says not. Well, we have a quorum with 3 members of the. We have a quorum with 3 members of the committee present. I'm sorry, we don't have the 4th one because Chairman Pearson's gone. So we have a quorum with 3 members of the committee present. I got a little bit confused when only 3 came up. All right, so we may proceed, Director.
Thank you. Our first order of business is the approval of committee minutes of May 13th, 2020. May I have a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Yes. Director Alva Rosales.
Yes.
Director Miller.
Yes.
Director Irvine.
Yes.
Chairman Irvine, that motion passes with 3 yes votes.
Thank you. Our next order of business is the review of an ordinance authorizing an additional experiment for bus route 31 31st Street. Now, Mike Conley will present.
Good morning. I'm Mike Conley, your Chief Planning Officer. When this board acted last May to extend for 1 year the experimental operation of the number 31 31st Street bus, no one had any idea of what the year ahead would hold. As we have moved through the past 12 months of this pandemic period, we remain positive about our transit operations and dedicated to providing essential services to the community. The ridership on the number 31 is strongly tied to the activity at the Illinois Institute of Technology campus. This has not been a time of strong attendance at that location, nor of many activity in the surrounding area. We've come before you today to recommend a 1-year extension of the existing experiment. We are optimistic that the upcoming year will provide a better measure of the returning ridership that we expect to see throughout the CTA system. With the pandemic powerfully affecting all CTA service and deeply depressing movement and therefore transit use, this is not a propitious time to make permanent changes to the CTA system, even for a well-received route like the number 31. It will continue to serve our customers, and given the region's status in the COVID spectrum, considerations of what the CTA system will look like post-pandemic are best left to the future. Staff are recommending that the board approve the ordinance before you, which would extend the current route operation for 1 year from mid-June of 2021 to mid-June of 2022. I will be making the same recommendation for the other 2 ongoing experimental routes, which began in the spring of last year, the realignment of the 52 Kedzie bus route and the 94 California route, as well as for the extension of the bus route 157 Streeterville-Taylor bus into Ogden and Pulaski, and for the same reasons. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have at this time.
I don't have any questions. I appreciate that we're continuing the experiment, and thanks to you and your team for your work on this. Anyone else have any questions?
No question.
No questions.
No questions. Just also glad to see that we're giving them these routes the opportunity to see how they do now in a with different circumstances. So glad to see this. Thank you. No question.
Thanks. Since there are no further questions, may I have leave to place this item on the omnibus for board approval?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded.
Thank you. Our next order of business is the review of an ordinance authorizing, oh wait, do we have to vote on that, Greg? Sorry.
No, not to the end.
Oh, that's right. Okay. Our next order of business is the review of an ordinance authorizing an additional experiment for the realignment of bus routes number 52, Kedzie, California, and number 94, South California. Mike?
Good morning again. Mike Connolly, your Chief Planning Officer. Staff are recommending that the board approve the ordinance before you, which would extend the experiment on the number 52 and 94 for 1 year from mid-June of 2021 through mid-June of 2022. Be glad to answer any questions. Thanks.
I don't have any questions.
No question.
No questions.
No questions.
Thank you. Since there are no further questions, may I have leave to place this item in the omnibus for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded.
Thank you. Our final order of business is the review of an ordinance authorizing an additional experiment for the extension of bus route number 157, Streeterville-Taylor. Mike?
Good morning. Again, Mike Connolly, your Chief Planning Officer. Staff are recommending that the board approve the ordinance before you, which would extend the experiment on the number 157 for 1 year from mid-June of 2021 into mid-June of 2022. Be glad to answer any questions for you.
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
No question.
Questions.
No questions.
Since there are no further questions, may I have leave to place this item in the omnibus for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Chairman Irvine, I'd like to say something. I sort of made a mistake here in terms of the motions, since Director Jakes is not on this committee. What I would like to do for the vote that we're about to take on the omnibus, I would like Director Rosales to move it and Director Miller to second it. I apologize for that. So for the vote, we've got that done. All right, Director Irvine, thank you.
You're welcome. So do you want to reread that or just for the omnibus?
No, you can just ask for the motion to approve the omnibus. That's fine.
Okay. Since there's no further business to come before the committee, may I have a motion to approve the omnibus and recommend the omnibus for board approval?
So moved.
Second.
Motion to vote approval of the omnibus was moved by Director Rosales and seconded by Director Miller. I'll now take a roll call vote. Director Rosales?
Yes.
Director Miller?
Yes.
Chairman Irvine?
Yes.
That motion to place all these items on the omnibus for approval and recommend board approval is approved with 3 yes votes. Thank you.
You're welcome. And finally, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Director Rosales, seconded by Director Miller. I'll take a roll call vote. Director Rosales?
Yes.
Director Miller?
Yes.
Chairman Irvine?
Yes.
That motion is approved with 3 yes votes, and I apologize for that confusion. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg.
Sure. Thank you, Kevin. We can now begin at 9:40, the meeting of the Committee on Finance, Audit, and Budget. Chairman Silva.
Good morning. I would like to call to order the May 12, 2021 meeting of the Committee on Finance, Audit, and Budget. Will the Secretary call the roll?
Yes, Director Irvine.
Here.
Director Miller.
Here.
Director Jakes.
Here.
Director Rosales.
Here.
Chairman Silva.
Here.
We have a quorum with all 5 members of the committee present, sir.
Our first order of business is the approval of the committee minutes of April 14, 2021. May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Director Jake, seconded by Director Miller. Director Irvine,
Yes.
Director Miller,
Yes.
Director Jakes,
Yes.
Director Alvarez,
Yes.
Chairman Silva.
Yes.
That motion is approved with 5 yes votes.
Our next order of business is the finance report. Jeremy Fine. Good morning, Jeremy.
Good morning. I'm Jeremy Fine, your Chief Financial Officer, and I'll be reviewing the financial results for March and year-to-date numbers. On the first page here, we have an overview of March revenues. We see fair and pass totals continue to be up as we have for the first several months of the year here. We see a total aggregate number of 4.5 million above budgeted expectations. The reduced fare subsidy is continuing to come in as expected per the budget. But again, that is a haircut of 50% over what we have historically received and is well below what we actually provide in terms of free and reduced fare rides. Non-fare box totals continue to come in slightly below budgeted expectations, driven by the ground transportation tax funding and advertising revenue and investment income coming in lower than expected. And then that adds up on a net basis to $2.4 million of positive variance for the month of March. So we continue to do very well, as you can see on the next page, on a year-to-date number basis, where we see fare and pass totals positive by over $8 million, reduced fare subsidy coming in as expected, non-fare box, being slightly below budgeted expectations, but on a net basis, we continue to outperform budgeted expectations for the first quarter of 2021 by about $2 million. On the next page, we review the expenses, and we see for March expenses, we continue to do very well in controlling our various line items here. Labor coming in slightly favorable to budget by 1.5 million. Material is essentially at budget, but slightly down, primarily due to just timing of purchases here. Fuel and power continue to be very strong performers for us. Injuries and damages coming in as expected. And security services, slightly positive, but some of that will reverse with future timing of invoices. And then other expenses, positive by about $5.2 million. So on aggregate, we see total operating expenses positive by over $8 million. When you look at this on a net basis, with taking into consideration of our revenues, we are about 10.5 million positive for the month. On the next page, we see year-to-date numbers. Again, similar trajectory for each of the line items on our expenses, where we see labor positive by almost 4 million, material slightly down, fuel and power positive by almost $3 million in aggregate, injuries and damages coming in as expected, security services slightly positive, and other expenses almost $4.5 million of favorability there. So overall, we see year-to-date expense numbers coming in about $12.3 million to the positive. Again, when coupled with the positive variance that we saw on revenues, we're for the first quarter of the year on a net basis, we're positive by 14.3 million to the budget. On the next page, we talk about public funding numbers. We continue to see public funding numbers positive. This is the first full year month of sales tax numbers. This is attributed to January collections, and we see about $2.7 million of positive variance here. PTF coming in about $2.7 million to the positive for April collections, and then the RET with regard to March collections is about $1.5 million, and then some positive variance on PTF for RET as well as ICE leaves us about $7.2 million favorable to budget with regard to public funding. On the next page, we see year-to-date numbers, and again, a similar trajectory on the various lines leads us on a net basis to be about $21.5 million to the positive on public funding. That has been very helpful in us being able to stretch out those critical CARES dollars as far as we can. And you see on the next page, the CARES draws that we're expecting for the month are about $54 million. Again, kind of in that same bandwidth that we've seen over the course of the last several months. Total draw now is about $620 million of the 817. So that's about 76% of the total. So again, we've been able to stretch those critical cares dollars with the assistance of the departments, as well as positive variance here on the revenue side. So again, we've been able to stretch those cares dollars into 2021, and we'll talk more on the budget amendment side with regard to the CRISA funding and how that will be helpful in closing gaps here expected for 2021 and going into 2022. Next page, please. With regard to the three commodities, we're concluding the RFP process for fuel. So we'll be looking to purchase outer year fuel in the near future. Power, we're fully locked in through 2024. And last week, we were able to lock in at very advantageous prices for future year purchases for natural gas. So we were within 10% of the all-time low. So again, very advantageous time to kind of lock in there on natural gas. And we'll continue to update the board with regard to future purchases on these three commodities. That concludes my report. Any questions with regard to March FAB?
We've been doing very well, okay. Should we expect, that to continue?
So, I wish I had a perfect crystal ball. We have done very, very well with regard to our expectations per the 21 budget for the first quarter. We're seeing some slight improvements, which Molly Poppy will talk about in a little bit more detail. But with regard to some of the efforts that we're making, with regard to ridership, and we're seeing some improvement there, and you're seeing it in the numbers in the FAB here. We continue to keep an eye on the larger economy because that's been a big tailwind for us in the first quarter with regard to public funding numbers. But again, we'll continue to keep an eye on both of those trends, and hopefully those continue and expand as we move forward. We do continue to keep a very tight grip on our expenses, and that's something that we can obviously have total control or more control on. So we'll continue to keep a tight control on our expenses as we continue to move forward. Because again, that's critical for us to be able to, extend the life, so to speak, of those critical cares dollars and the CRISA funding that we've been awarded by RTA.
Thank you.
Further questions, Chairman Silva?
No more questions.
No more questions. Director Alvarez-Rosales? Any questions? Any questions, Director Alvarez-Rosales, for Jeremy?
I do have a question, and for some reason my mic didn't want to go on. Sorry about that. Just a quick question. With regards to projected reopenings, do we have any additional interest in the area of advertising? I know that that had gone down a little bit. Are there some discussions about that now that we're seeing things reopen?
Yeah, absolutely. We are aggressively pursuing advertising opportunities with folks. You are starting to see, some tailwind on that, just in terms of just general advertising on the system. And again, as more people ride the system, you'll see a larger and larger increase in that. But again, we're looking at any and every opportunity to engage advertisers in the reopening efforts. So we will continue to do that and continue to update the board on those efforts as those come to fruition.
Great, thank you. That's all my questions.
Thank you. Director Jakes, any questions?
No questions, Greg.
You, Director Miller?
Just a good job. Thanks, Jeremy and the team. And Jeremy, you did say that on the CRISA fund that we were able to get the majority of those funding coming.
So the RTA awarded the CRISA funds based on basically need to ride, propensity to ride, and industries that rely on public transit. So as such, based on those criteria that the RTA used, we received 75% or about 75% of the total allocation of CRISA funding to the region. This was up from the CARES funding percentage of about 58%. So again, Based on, those factors, need to ride, propensity to ride, and the industries that are reliant upon public transit, we fared very well and were awarded 75% or so of the total allocation.
Thank you.
Director Irvine, any questions?
Questions? Thank you.
No, thank you. All right. There are no further questions on this item, Chairman Silver, so we may proceed to number 4.
Our next order of business is the review of an ordinance adopting an amended budget for calendar year 2021. Jeremy.
Thank you. Again, I'm Jeremy Fine, your Chief Financial Officer, and we're proposing to amend the 2021 operating budget as required by the RTA. The amended budget incorporates the addition of coronavirus response and relief supplemental appropriation known as the CRISA Act funding, revised RTA public funding marks, removing the ground transportation tax revenue from the City of Chicago for 2021, and including positive results for January through March, as well as providing current estimates for April through December. In March, the RTA approved the allocation of CRISA funding for each of the service boards. The CRISA Act provided $486 million of funding to the region, and the CTA was allocated approximately 75% of those funds, or $361 million. The amended budget calls for the CTA to use the remaining $333.8 million of CARES funding, as well as the $247.9 of CRISA funding for 2021. The remaining $113 million of CRISA funding will be expected to carry over into 2022, depending on actual results of 2021's budget performance. The RTA also increased the public funding marks at its March board meeting, increasing the estimates by $60.3 million compared to the original budget due to positive economic results. In addition, $16 million of revenue from the ground transportation tax is not expected to be available in 2021 to the CTA. And then finally, the amended budget also incorporates better than expected results for January through March. And the overall total budget will be amended to slightly lower than what it was originally, by about $7.4 million from $1.645 billion to $1.638 billion. That concludes my remarks with regard to the operating budget amendment. Glad to answer any questions.
Are you comfortable, to project the same as this first quarter?
So we again, take the lead of RTA with regard to public funding. I think that based on the analysis that they've done, where they look at various factors and various reports from the Federal Reserve, from Moody's Analytics, from what we've seen and the trajectory of the market going forward, I think that the public funding numbers, are solid numbers, as of right now. Obviously, this is a very dynamic situation, as we've seen over the course of the last year. And then, with regard to, our overall kind of revenue estimates, again, this is a dynamic situation that we continue to look at very closely. We'll be frankly ramping up here in the very near future with regard to looking at the 22 budget and how the 21 budget is shaking out in the second half of the year. So this is an iterative process. We'll be working with MIT again, as we did last year. So, again, this is going to be, we're going to have kind of meeting of the minds and looking at what others are estimating around the country and around the region with regard to estimates, whether it be for ridership related revenues, the public funding numbers, as well as expenses. So we'll continue to keep the board apprised as those things continue to, we continue to think about those and let those marinate and, kind of come up with a plan for the second half and into 2022. But again, this is a very dynamic situation, but I think as of right now, the RTA numbers that they're adjusting with regard to public funding make sense based on the analysis that they look at from the Fed, Moody Analytics, and other places.
And when are we assuming, that the economy is going to be open again?
So, that's baked into the numbers, a gradual reopening here that we've been seeing. So, again, that's all kind of baked into the analysis, and again, kind of, it's been pretty good so far and been relatively conservative. And, I think that even with this adjustment, that trend will, continue because, again, we're not trying to get out over our skis and estimate that, things go back to completely normal. But, with regard to, in a matter of days or a week or two, so again, that's all being factored in, that there's a gradual increase. It is important to note that public funding, was only down about 10%, off of the prior year, 2019 numbers. So for 2020. So, we did not see, kind of a huge decline. So, again, I think that, the historic kind of indicators that the RTA has used in the past is a good proxy for, kind of making these adjustments here as part of this amended budget.
Thank you.
Director Alvarez, any questions?
No question, but thank to the team, Jeremy, and to the team for all the hard work. Thanks.
Director Jakes.
No questions, Greg.
Director Miller.
No questions.
Director Irvine.
No questions.
There's no further questions on this matter, Chairman Silva.
Our next order of business is the review of an ordinance.
Chairman Silva?
Yes.
We need to place this item on the omnibus.
There are no further questions, and I can leave to place this item on the omnibus for approval.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Director Jakes, seconded by Director Miller. So now we can proceed to number 5, Chairman.
Our next order of business is the review of an ordinance amending ordinance number 020-108, approving the fiscal years 2021 to 2025 capital improvement program. Jeremy.
Thank you. Again, I'm Jeremy Fine, your Chief Financial Officer, and I'm here today to present an amendment to the 2021 through 2025 capital improvement program known as the CIP. In November of 2020, the board approved the $3.4 billion CIP. We are now amending the CIP as we do each year after federal appropriations are finalized and incorporate any additional known changes. The first amendment is, this amendment is being done to facilitate several changes to align sources and uses. First, we're looking to decrease the amount of federal formula funds by $17.7 million. Based on the final federal appropriations, this funding is authorized under the one-year extension of the FAST Act and is slightly higher than what we received in 2020. Second, we're looking to align state pay-go funding in 2022 and 2023 to provide for projects as a result of lower federal funding. Third, we're looking to align the timing of state bond funding with the state grant. And finally, we're looking to reprogram $15.5 million of prior CIP funds for various improvements. The net funding impact here is a decrease to the 2021-2025 CIP by $2.3 million of the $3.4 billion CIP. That concludes my remarks. I'm glad to answer any questions.
I don't have a question.
Okay. Director Alvarez.
No questions.
Director Jakes.
No questions.
Director Miller.
No questions.
Director Irvine.
No questions.
No further questions, Chairman Silva.
Since there are no further questions, may I have leave to place this item on the omnibus for board approval?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, we can proceed to agenda item number 6.
Our next order of business is the review of an ordinance authorizing the acquisition of property located at 2019 West North Avenue for substation for the your new blue project. Bill Mooney.
Morning, Bill Mooney, your Chief Infrastructure Officer. Real estate staff recommends approval of an ordinance authorizing the acquisition of property located at 2019 West North Avenue. The property is being acquired to facilitate the construction of a new substation adjacent to the Damon Blue Line Station. The property is an unapproved parcel consisting of approximately 900 square feet and is adjacent to a CTA parking lot that the substation will be constructed on. CTA will be purchasing the property for $90,000. I'll be happy to take any questions.
I don't have a question.
Director Alvarado Rosales,
No questions.
Director Jakes,
Bill, who are we purchasing the property from?
It is a corporation known as the 2100 North Corporation.
Okay. Thank you.
Director Miller,
No question.
Director Irvine.
No questions.
There are no further questions on the West North Avenue property, Director Silva.
Since there are no further questions, may I have leave to place this item on the omnibus for board approval?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded by Directors Miller, by Directors Jakes and Miller. We may proceed to item number 7, Chairman.
Our next order of business is the review of an ordinance authorizing the sale of a portion and grant of a temporary easement for an additional portion of authority property located at 901 West Division Street, Chicago, Illinois, to the city of Chicago. Bill?
Thank you, Bill Mooney again. Staff recommends approval of an ordinance authorizing the transfer of a portion of CTA's property at 901 Division and a grant of a temporary construction easement for other portions to the City of Chicago. The City of Chicago Department of Transportation is reconstructing Division Street in the area of CTA's Material Distribution Center located at 901 West Division. As part of the project, they will be widening the street, requiring the taking of 620 square feet segment of landscape CTA-owned land and the use of a 215 square foot construction easement during the construction. Staff has reviewed the requested taking and have not identified any adverse impacts to CTA operations at that facility. The city will be purchasing the parcel for $100,000 and a temporary easement for $5,000. At the conclusion of CDOT's work, they will be required to restore the landscaping within the easement area. I'm happy to take any questions at this time.
No questions.
Director Alvarado Rosales,
No questions.
Director Jakes,
No questions.
Director Miller,
No questions.
Director Irvine.
No questions.
The questions are finished on this item, sir.
Since there are no further questions, I have leave to place this item on the omnibus for board approval.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded by Directors Jakes and Miller. We may proceed to agenda item number 8, sir.
Our next order of business is agenda item number 8. The discussion of this item will take place during the board meeting.
Number 9.
Our next order of business is the review of an ordinance authorizing a license agreement with Cardenas Landscaping Incorporated for authority property located adjacent to 207 Asbury Avenue, Evanston, Illinois, Yellow Line. Bill Mooney.
Thank you. Staff recommends approval of an ordinance authorizing a license agreement with Cardenas Landscaping, Inc. for CTA property adjacent to 207 Asbury Avenue in Evanston. Cardenas Landscaping is located adjacent to the CTA's Yellow Line right-of-way and is seeking the use of approximately 8,523 square feet of vacant, unimproved land. The license agreement has an initial term of 10 years with 2 5-year extensions for the value of $1,300 a month, with an annual escalation of 3%. The agreement can be terminated by either party with 30 days' notice. I'm happy to take any questions at this time.
Do we do a lot of business with Cardenas Landscaping?
No, sir. This is the only business we're doing with them.
Thank you.
Director Alvarado Rosales,
No questions.
Director Jakes,
No questions.
Director Miller,
No questions.
Director Irvine.
No questions.
Questions are complete, Chairman Silva.
If there are no further questions, may I have leave to place this item on the omnibus for board approval?
So moved.
Second.
Second by Directors Jakes and Miller. We may now proceed to the contracts. B1 and B2, sir.
Our next order of business are contract number B1 and B2 asphalt and paving contracts.
Any questions, Chairman Silva?
No questions.
Director Alvarez Rosales?
I guess just regarding B1, sounds like this is a good story where can somebody elaborate? Because I think this was part of the small business program. Is that correct? I don't know if Juan Pablo is there.
Yes. Good morning, Vice Chair. This is Juan Pablo Prieto, Director of Diversity Programs. Yes, this contract was set aside through our small business program. So for certified small businesses to compete for this. This SBE also participated in our small business educational series and our building small business series, and has attended numerous outreach events and been very interested in doing business with CTA. So it's a good testament to the small business program and just to our outreach program, and to show, networking and getting out to these events do work for the small businesses.
Yeah, good job. Just love to see more of that. I guess more than a question, just a statement. Both Ellen and Juan Pablo, they work together on this. So that's great. It's great to see that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Director Jakes?
No questions, Greg.
Director Miller?
No questions.
Director Irvine?
No questions.
Since we're finished with questions, we may proceed to B3, Chairman.
Our next order of business is contract number B3, a sanitation service contract.
Any questions, Chairman?
What is the participation of DBEs in this contract?
We assess a 0% goal on this because there are no DBEs that's either service or have the porta potties.
Thank you.
Director Alvarez Rosales?
Juan Pablo, just I guess a question. So this is one of these that we mention. I know we talk about that we mention down the road that this contract could come up again, and we tell our DB businesses about it, so maybe they can prepare and they can come back next time we bid on it. Is that correct? Would this be like an example of something we do?
Yes, and we're going to be meeting shortly with our technical assistance agencies to share a list of contracts like this that have had either 0% participation or low participation. So hopefully those assist agencies will get the word out to businesses either that have maybe expanded into these areas to either get DB certified or expand their NAICS codes, or for entrepreneurs that are thinking about starting a business to show them some industries that we need DBEs in.
Great, thank you.
Director Jakes?
No questions, Greg.
Director Miller?
No questions.
Director Irvine?
No questions.
Chairman, we may proceed to contract number B4.
Our next order of business is contract number B4, a change order of an electrical bus contract.
Questions, Chairman?
No questions.
Okay, Director Alvarez Rosales?
No questions.
Director Jakes?
No questions.
Director Miller?
No questions.
Director Irvine?
No questions.
Chairman Silva, we may proceed to contract C as in cat 1.
Our next order of business is contract number C1, a garage service contract.
Chairman Silva?
Our participation of DBEs in this one, Juan Pablo?
Because this is a sole source, and for the support services on this are sole source to GenFair, we don't have any DB participation.
Okay, thank you.
Director Alvarez Rosales?
Just could you remind me, Juan Pablo, of the process that one goes through to reach the sole source status?
Sure, I think Ellen can walk through the sole source process.
Sure, I'd be happy to do that. So we have a sole source review board. So if a department makes a determination that they can that it would either be a sole source or disadvantageous contract. They have to prepare quite a bit of paperwork, and they go in front of a committee made up of the sole source review committee members, and they have to present all the facts and answer any questions that they have before the committee will make a determination of whether in fact that it is a sole source or a disadvantageous contract. If they make a determination it is not, then we go out for bid for the procurement.
Thank you.
Director Jakes?
No questions. And thank you for that, Ellen.
Oh, you're welcome.
Director Miller?
No question.
Director Irvine?
No questions.
Right, then we can proceed to C2, Chairman.
Next order of business is contract number C2, a consulting services contract for CTA fare systems. Can you tell us a little bit, okay, of how do we contract, okay, the consulting services?
So we went out for an RFP, and we questioned who had the capacity, who had the experience and so forth to assist the CTA in this type of a project. In which case they're going to provide technical assistance to the CTA staff. And it's for the seamless transition of the venture operations to a new modern cloud-based architectural system. So we go out for an RFP and we look to see who has the experience, who has the qualifications, and then we make a determination on who, and we do look at price, of course, on who can provide the best information or the best assistance to the CTA.
Have we worked with them before?
We have worked with them before, and they are also have done similar projects for Los Angeles, San Francisco, New York, and Boston.
So you're comfortable?
Yeah. Director
Yes.
Silva, Director Silva, this is Jeremy Fine, Chief Financial Officer. We have worked with the lead firm here, Auriga. We've worked with them most recently on the RFP process for new fare boxes. They are heading a consortium, as Ellen was indicating, of other firms that will be working with us as well on different aspects of the Ventra 3.0 implementation. And each of those firms has prior experience and very detailed experience with other implementations around the country, whether it be in San Francisco, Los Angeles, New York, Boston. So, this is a veteran team that we've engaged here, and we're excited to have them all on board.
Thank you.
Director Alvarez-Alice?
No questions. Thank you.
Director Jakes?
No questions.
Director Miller?
How many participants we had in the bid process?
There were four.
Go ahead, Jeremy.
I'm sorry. Director Miller, there were four firms four groups of firms that responded.
Okay, thank you.
Director Irvine?
Questions?
All right, we're finished, so we can move on to contract number G as in girl 1.
Next order of business is contract number G1, a purchase of licenses and databases.
Chairman Silva?
No questions.
Director Alvarez-Alice?
No questions.
Director Jakes?
No questions, Greg.
Director Miller?
No question.
Director Irvine?
No questions.
Then we may proceed to G1, so.
Our final order of business is contract number G1, a request for proposals for insurance brokerage services. Is this the broker that we use, okay, for insurance, that we've been using for insurance?
Yes, it is.
And he keeps winning year after year, okay, so he does a very good job.
I believe the law department is very happy with them, yes.
Thank you.
Director Alvarez-Alice?
No questions.
Director Jakes?
No questions.
Director Miller?
No questions.
Director Irvine?
No questions.
Since there's no questions, Chairman, proceed to 10A.
If there are no further questions on the contracts, may I have leave to place the 7 contracts that the committee reviewed on the omnibus?
So moved.
Second.
Motion was moved by Director Jakes and seconded by Director Miller. We may proceed to 10B, Chairman.
If there is no further business to come before the committee, may I have a motion to approve the omnibus and recommend the omnibus for board approval?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Director Jakes, seconded by Director Miller. I'll take a roll call vote. Director Alvarez Rosales.
Yes.
Director Jakes.
Yes.
Director Miller.
Yes.
Director Irvine.
Yes.
Chairman Silva.
Yes.
Motion is approved with 5 yes votes, sir. We may proceed to agenda item number 11.
And finally, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Motion to adjourn has been moved by Director Jakes, seconded by Director Miller. I'll now take a vote. Director Alvarez Rosales.
Yes.
Director Jakes.
Yes.
Director Miller.
Yes.
Director Irvine.
Yes.
Chairman Silva.
Yes.
That motion passes. We are adjourned, and the CTA regular board meeting will begin in approximately 90 seconds. It's Greg Longini again. We're back now to the regularly scheduled meeting, and I will turn it over to Chairman Arabelle Alvarez Rosales to conduct the meeting.
Thank you, Greg. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call to order the regularly scheduled meeting of the Chicago Transit Board for May 12th, 2021. Would the secretary call the roll?
Yes, Director Irvine.
Here.
Director Miller.
Here.
Director Jakes.
Here.
Director Silva.
Here.
Chairman Alvarez Rosales.
Here.
We have a quorum, ma'am, with all 5 members of the board present.
Great, thank you. Our first order of business this morning is public comment. Greg, do we have any?
No, we have no public comment this month, Chairman.
Thank you. Our next order of business today is the approval of the April 10th board minutes. The minutes were previously distributed. I will now entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the regular board meeting of May 10th, 2021.
Sorry, that was April. I'm sorry, I wrote that wrong. It was April.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I'm like, we haven't done
I wrote it wrong. What was it? In April? It was April
2021. Thank you.
Okay. The April minutes is the motion. Sorry.
Not there yet. Okay.
Do we have a motion?
Yeah, so moved.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't hear you, sir.
No,
Second.
It's not my day. I should have gotten my hair cut. Moved by Director Jakes. Seconded by Director Miller. I'll take a roll call vote. Director Irvine.
Yes.
Director Miller.
Yes.
Director Jakes.
Yes.
Director Silva.
Yes.
Chairman Alvarez.
Yes.
The motion is approved with 5 yes votes.
Just trying to make the meeting exciting. Okay. Our next order of business is executive session. It is my understanding, Karen, that there is executive session today.
Yes, Vice Chair, we will have an executive session pursuant to Section 2, Paragraph 2, subparagraphs 5 and 8 of the Open Meetings Act.
I will now entertain a motion to recess into executive session based on council's recommendation.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded by Director Jakes and Miller. Take a vote. Director Irvine.
Yes.
Director Miller.
Yes.
Director Jakes.
Yes.
Director Silva.
Yes.
Chairman Alvarez.
Yes.
That motion to recess into executive session is approved with 5 yes votes. So we are now at 10:22 recessed into executive session. Hi, this is Greg Longini again. The Chicago Transit Board is about to reopen, so I will turn it over to Chairman Alvaro Rosales.
Thank you, Greg. I will now entertain a motion to return to the open meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded by Directors Jakes and Miller. I'll take a roll call vote. Director Irvine?
Yes.
Director Miller?
Yes.
Director Jakes?
Yes.
Director Silva? Director Silva?
You got to unmute.
Yes.
Okay, Director Silva's on. And Chairman Alvaro Rosales?
Yes.
The motion is approved with 5 yes votes, ma'am.
Great, thank you. We will now hear a presentation regarding a matter discussed in executive session. Karen?
Thank you. This is on Board Agenda Item 7E. This item is a lease for property that's located at 4829 North Lips Avenue in Chicago. CTA seeks to lease this property from Avondale Investors LLC. The initial lease is for a 10-year period and includes 18,000 square feet of classroom and administrative space on 2 floors with 46 parking spaces. It's close to the Jefferson Park Blue Line stop. The initial rent is $306,000 per annum with escalation. CTA is also going to be responsible for certain portions of insurance and a certain amount of taxes along with certain maintenance. Staff in real estate, as well as training and workforce development, recommend that the board approve this lease.
Thank you, Karen. I will now entertain a motion to approve Board Agenda Item number 7-E, an ordinance authorizing a lease agreement with Avondale Investors LLC for space located at 4829 North Lips Avenue, Chicago, Illinois.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded by Directors Jakes and Miller. I'll take the vote. Director Irvine?
Yes.
Director Miller?
Yes.
Director Jakes?
Yes.
Director Silva?
Yes.
Chairman Alvaro Rosales?
Yes.
Motion is approved with 5 yes votes.
Thank you, Greg. Since there are no board matters, our next order of business is a report from the Committee on Strategic Planning and Service Delivery. Director Irvine?
Thank you. The Committee on Strategic Planning and Service Delivery met earlier this morning via Zoom video teleconference. The committee approved the May 12th, 2020 committee minutes. The committee reviewed the following 3 ordinances. An ordinance authorizing an additional experiment for bus route number 3131st. An ordinance authorizing an additional experiment for the realignment of bus routes number 52, Kedzie, California, and number 94, South California. And an ordinance authorizing an additional experiment for the extension of bus route number 157, Streeterville, Taylor. The committee approved the 3 ordinances and recommends it for board approval. The committee placed the 3 ordinances on the omnibus. That concludes my report, Chairman Alvaro Rosales. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next order of business is a report from the Committee of Finance, Audit, and Budget. Director Silva?
The Committee on Finance, Audit, and Budget met earlier this morning via Zoom video teleconference. The committee approved the April 14, 2021 committee minutes. The committee reviewed the finance report. The committee deferred discussion and review of committee agenda item number 8. The committee did review the following 5 ordinances. An ordinance adopting an amended budget for calendar year 2021. An ordinance amending Ordinance 020-108, approving the fiscal year 2021-2025 capital improvement program. An ordinance authorizing the acquisition of property located at 2019 West North Avenue for a substation for the Your New Blue project. An ordinance authorizing the sale of a portion and grant of a temporary easement for an additional portion of authority property located at 901 West Division Street, Chicago, Illinois, to the city of Chicago. An ordinance authorizing a license agreement with Cardinals Landscaping for authority property located adjacent to 207 Asbury Avenue, Evanston, Illinois, yellow line. The committee also reviewed a purchase and sales award recommendations. The committee approved all items that it reviewed and recommends board approval of all review items. The committee placed 5 ordinances and 8 contracts on the omnibus. And that concludes my report, Chairman Albert Rosales.
Thank you, Director Salah. May I now have a motion to approve the omnibus as stated by Directors Irvine and Silva?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded by Directors Jakes and Miller. And I'll take a roll call vote on the omnibus, which, just to remind everybody, are all 8 contracts and the 5 ordinances, not including the one that was already approved. So I'll take the vote on that. Director Irvine.
Yes.
Director Miller.
Yes.
Director Jakes.
Yes.
Director Silva.
Yes.
Chairman Alvaro Rosales.
Yes.
Omnibus is approved with 5 yes votes, ma'am.
Great, thank you. With the consent of the board, I would like to now go out of order of the agenda and discuss new business.
Yes, it's my understanding that President Carter would like to say a few words right now and address the topic.
Thank you, Greg. Unless you've been hiding under a rock over the past couple of weeks, I think you all have been hearing the growing rumble of reopening as the result of the vaccination process and the desire for the city, the state, the country to start reopening and starting to try to get back to some sense of normal in a post-pandemic environment. I want the board to know that CTA internally has also been working towards and planning a reopening strategy that would allow us to also start to welcome our customers back and to start to encourage the ridership return that we're going to need in the long term in order to get back to our, lack of a better word, our state of normal. So one of the things that I wanted to do today was to have the board hear about our reopening marketing strategy, which we view as a key component to our messaging around welcoming customers back and getting them comfortable with riding CTA again. I want you to know that we are going to be doing a very robust marketing plan, much more than what we normally do at CTA, but certainly in recognition of the fact that we're still more than 1 million rides per day away from where we should be. And we're not going to see that ridership return unless we actively and aggressively go out and start marketing CTA to them and giving them reasons to start riding us again. So over the course of this summer, as the city starts to reopen, there are going to be a number of initiatives that we're going to pursue. We'll talk to you about those later. But initially what I wanted to do was to unveil to the board the marketing strategy that we're going to be using, going forward, and to have Brian Steele give you a presentation about that effort. So that if you have any questions, you can ask us and we can respond to them today. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Brian and let Brian walk you through the presentation on our marketing plans, and then we can answer any questions the board may have about that. Brian?
Thank you, President Carter. Directors, I'm Brian Steele, Vice President of Communications and Marketing. As President Carter referenced, on April 29th, the city launched its Open Chicago initiative, which calls for a number of reopening activities. So an increase in capacity at restaurants and bars, the reintroduction of summer festivals, farmers markets, things of that nature. So as President Carter mentioned, we have been working on a overall marketing campaign for many months now, and we're very excited to present it to you today. Next slide, please, Herb. As President Carter noted earlier, the program will be multi-pronged, marketing and public relations. We will be targeting our lapsed customers, those who haven't been on the system since the start of the pandemic, but also current riders who might only be using the system 1 or 2 times a week, and we believe we can increase that ridership. But we're also reaching out to businesses and other stakeholders. As you can see on the screen, we have some pretty basic marketing and messaging goals. And I think one of the most important is letting the public know that CTA is open for business. You all know that throughout the pandemic, CTA has been running as much service as possible. And we want to let the public know that we are still here and that we are doing many things to ensure that they have a healthy and comfortable commute. We'll also be looking for some external validators to help reinforce the importance of transit to our region, and also reminding people that transit absolutely has to be a part of the region's recovery. Next slide, please. So we've been working on some branding for the campaign, which has the tagline, "When you're ready, we're ready." What you see on the screen is a concept for what we call a branding stamp, which is an element that would appear on all of our collateral materials, both print and digital, to help people understand that this is part of an overall overarching marketing campaign. Next slide, please, sir. So among the elements that we'll be putting forth in the coming days and weeks, one of them is rider testimonial videos. We feel that some of the best people to tell the story about the CTA are the people actually using the CTA. So we've identified a handful of riders, those who have been riding the system throughout the pandemic, and we will have brief videos with them sharing their experiences about riding CTA and also explaining why CTA has been important to them, both during the pandemic and as we emerge from the pandemic. The next slide, please. An important constituency, as mentioned earlier, is the business community. President Carter and his team have been having regular ongoing dialogues with the heads of these and other large business agencies about our reopening activities. And we will be scheduling something in the very near future, a large virtual meeting with these entities. They are really critical in helping us get information to employees who are returning to the office, to customers, to clients, to tenants. So they are really a good channel for us to use to get the word out about the things CTA is doing. The next slide, please. You'll be seeing some changes in system on buses, trains, and in stations. Next slide, please. One of the new ads that we're running on our digital screens relates to cleaning. Those of you who have been on the system know that we've been running cleaning ads basically for a year now. We started either in late March or early April, telling people that buses, trains, and stations are cleaned daily, multiple times a day, that we do regular deep cleaning, that we use cutting-edge technology like EMIS sprayers. So even though we've been running these ads for a while, we recently refreshed them, knowing that each and every day new customers are returning to the system, and we know that cleaning and sanitation will be top of mind for them. So we wanted these really visible reminders of all the things that we're doing. Next slide, please. Customers coming back to high ridership stations and bus terminals will see these new banners that are a very visible indication, again, of all the steps CTA is taking. It might be hard to see on the screen, but the welcome back banner concept that we have on the right touches upon all the areas that, again, really seem to be top of mind for customers, like our very robust cleaning regimen, like air circulation on trains and buses. We have an item on there about our ridership tools, including our ridership dashboard, which gives customers information about the best times of day to travel. And then we also have reminders about our mask requirements. So this is a really good, visible, and low-cost way for us to greet customers as they're entering stations and terminals. Next slide, please. But as great as those banners are, nothing beats the human touch, which is why we're going to be introducing what we're calling Welcome Back Ambassadors. These will be CTA employees stationed during the AM and PM hours and probably during the midday as well, that really are there to welcome customers back, to serve as sort of a de facto concierge for the station. They will be answering questions, providing basic information. We will likely be having them hand out our travel healthy kits, which are the kits that we put together with a reusable cloth mask, hand sanitizer, and some healthy travel tips. So again, all the signage and notification is important, but we think that the personal touch will be really a way to let customers know that we've been thinking about them, that we care about them, and that we're doing things to make sure that they have a very comfortable commute. Next slide, please. We're also updating our system signage. For the last year, we've been using what we call platform and station floor decals, small circles with information about social distancing. Well, those we want to update and create larger decals, more visible. Probably not as many of them as we currently have out on the system, but they will be larger and therefore more visible. Even though social distancing guidelines as it relates to the health guidance are shrinking a little bit, we still feel that it's very important to remind people to, as noted on these concepts, to make space for their transit neighbors. Next slide, please. All of our in-system signage and wayfinding and our outreach to the business community is important, but really an effective way to get our message directly to the public is via paid media. Next slide, please. And that's why we will be introducing a very robust and comprehensive advertising component to this campaign. We are looking at digital and print media that talks about not only all the things that we're doing, but importantly, really focus on the importance of public transit to the city of Chicago. President Carter gave us guidance a long time ago that he wanted to come up with some type of advertising that was really evocative, emotional, thought-provoking, and something that really touches upon how integral CTA is to the fabric of the city. So we talk a lot about Chicago being a city of big shoulders and having resiliency to come back from challenge after challenge. So the advertising, broadcast advertising that we'll be putting together will really reflect that kind of messaging. We really want the advertising, as President Carter's mentioned, to be a conversation starter. We want people to see these ads and say, wow, I never really thought of how integral CTA is to the city. So we plan on really spreading these advertisements out to a lot of different channels, digital, print, and broadcast, as I mentioned, but we will also be delving into the community media. There are many great neighborhood publications that we are planning print advertisements for, and we do plan our advertising to be multilingual, so in a number of different non-English media outlets. But apart from just buying the advertising, which is great and reaches a big audience, we are also going to be kind of working some of our existing relationships with media personalities, with television reporters, with producers, with radio DJs, and hopefully get them talking our campaign, not only in terms of the advertising, but as they're doing their news breaks, as the DJs are doing their regular dialogue during programs, because we think this is going to generate a lot of interest and get the dialogue among those media personalities separate apart from the advertising. We think that'll be very beneficial. The next slide, please. We're also planning some in-system campaigns that will run on our digital screen, and also on the many bus shelters. As part of the city's street furniture contract, we have access to about 150 bus shelters across the city. If you've seen them, they have very large advertising sections on them that face the public. So one of the campaigns we're going to be introducing is Let's Get You Back There. Again, with the reopening, people are going to be reintroduced to all the things that they were doing prior to March 2020, going to outdoor festivals, going to outdoor dining, visiting cultural institutions. So this in-system campaign will be a reminder to folks that CTA is really the great way to reintroduce yourself to your city. Next slide, please. Along those very same lines, a similar campaign that we have in mind is has the tagline, "Hello, old friend." Again, reminding people that they're going to be going back and doing things that they haven't done for over 14 months. Cultural institutions, neighborhoods, farmers markets. So again, these are ads that you'll see running in system on our digital screens and on the bus shelters. Next slide, please. And we also want to find ways to really connect with our customers via a customer appreciation week. A few times in the past, we've brought out our heritage fleet, which is our vintage trains and buses for a variety of events. We did it for the CTA's 70th anniversary, and we also did it for the 125th anniversary of the L structure. So we want to do something like that again, because these events really, really connect not only with our customers, but with the general public. Certainly they're a celebration of the history and heritage of the CTA, but they also serve the role of fostering goodwill and appreciation for the current day CTA. So in addition to these vintage vehicles, we'll also look for the opportunity to run our brand new 7000 series trains, which are awesome looking and the most modern rail cars in the United States, but also our brand new e-buses, which recently began running along the number 66 Chicago route. Next slide. So that's a very brief overview of some of the many things that we're planning. I'm happy to answer any questions, and I look forward to your feedback. And thank you.
Thank you, Brian. But before the board takes questions, I also wanted to sort of put this once again into a broader perspective of what's going on at the city as a whole. I've been actively involved in the task force. I actually chair one of the subcommittees of the city's task force on reopening. And so one of the things that we're also looking to do here from a marketing standpoint is not obviously what CTA does directly itself, but also taking advantage of what the city will be doing in terms of reopening and co-promoting and leveraging the city's activities to promote CTA as well. So a lot of what Brian was showing you, particularly the welcome back material that we could put up on our bus shelters and elsewhere, also will be nice lead-ins to connecting to city activities that will be basically sending the same message and allowing us to leverage that to get support for CTA. So this will be part of a much more broader marketing effort taken by the city as a whole, in which it has been clearly understood, and as Brian pointed out, the city clearly understands that bringing transit back is a key component to the reopening and revitalization of the city. And so we're looking forward to working with our city partners, along with our sister agency at the Park District and elsewhere, to promote their activities while promoting the use of CTA as a part of their work as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Brian. I do have a question, and you may already be thinking of doing this. I know with the business community, you mentioned 3 of the larger organizations that are involved, and that we would be having a meeting with them on a digital platform, I think you said, right? I think it would be great to also invite some of the other business organizations that are out there. Especially, there's a lot of them that we work with regards to the DBE program, and I know Juan Pablo coordinates, and you may be already thinking of that, but I just think it's really important, especially because a lot of the passengers that we service, right, the public comes from those areas. So just a suggestion to make sure to try to include those as well as much as possible, because they can help us get the word out.
I agree with that, and really the 3 organizations that we share with you are just illustrative of the business groups that we are talking to. We've been engaging in hundreds of meetings during the pandemic with organizations of various sizes and constituencies to get the message out about CTA and how we're operating. And if anything, that work will expand as we go into the reopening phase to make sure that we're targeting and getting the appropriate information, not just to the employers, but telling them how to get the information to their employees, which has been critical to dealing with some of the employers' angst about how this is going to unfold. And there's material that we're putting together and we have put together for employers to give to their employees, informing them about what we've been doing on CTA, informing them about how to use CTA safely, and we're going to be refreshing and updating that material as part of the reopening effort. So we recognize that we have to be out there aggressively telling our story and really dealing with some of the negative perceptions that people may have about their safety on CTA, when in fact the reality is that CTA is a very safe mode for travel for them, both from a health standpoint as well as from a security standpoint.
That's great. And Brian, use us as well on the board. I know each and every one of us are involved with a number of different organizations, so share that with us so we can share with others. Any of the other directors? Director Jakes, do you have any questions or comments?
No questions or comments. Thank you.
Okay. Director Miller?
Yes, thank you. On the banner, we just spent a lot of time talking about security, and we had a lot of stuff on the banner. I thought security should have been one of the highlights on that banner.
It is. It will be. Okay. Obviously, this is a very high level, presentation, but we have done, as you are aware, we've done a number of surveys. We've gotten a lot of information about our customers and what their concerns are in terms of coming back to CTA. We are planning to target all of those issues, including the security issue, as part of our marketing effort.
Great. Well, you also, President Carter, being on one of the task forces for reopening and with CTA, and I've met with the mayor. How are we looking as July 4th being that target date?
Well, the mayor has certainly put a marker down for July 4th, assuming that the virus cooperates. And so we're certainly looking to align our efforts with the city's efforts. And so, our plan is to launch this marketing effort at the beginning of the summer. We'll take advantage of the city's activities to further leverage what we do in terms of marketing. And so we are certainly targeting July 4th as an opportunity to do some very big things if that date holds firm with the city.
Okay, thank you.
It'll be a good July 4th. Director Silva?
Yeah.
Any questions, comments? I think not. Director Silva?
Yeah, no, I'm here. Okay. No, I don't have any questions. Sorry.
No questions. All right. Thank you. I think that's it. This is great. It's exciting. It's very much needed. And it's, I know that we've been talking about it for a long time now, and it shows from all the work, that has been done. So excited to see the rollout, and even more excited to see people come back. I think that, this will make a huge difference. And so thank you to the team for all the hard work. Really great. Seems very comprehensive, which is good. Now we'll see on the rollout, right? But again, any support we can give you, we're here to support that. So thanks for that work.
Well, it is certainly going to be an all hands on deck effort. So we will certainly look to the boards and your relationships to help promote the message just as much as what we'll do at the staff level. So thank you for volunteering to support that.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks so much. Our next order of business is the construction report. So I'm going to go to Bill Mooney.
Thank you once again, Directors. Bill Mooney, your Chief Infrastructure Officer. And I'm here with your construction report. We'll begin today where we normally do our Your New Blue Signals upgrade project. Next slide, please. Project remains on budget, but tight to schedule. Since we last met, we started the cutover at Harlem interlocking, and it's been progressing and should be coming to completion in the near term. We also delivered 2 of the last 3 kind of open air relay houses that we have coming into the system, one at Old Manning and one at Cumberland, and we've been prepping a site at River Road. The remaining sites are all tied to the major interlockings associated with our Rosemont terminal and our O'Hare terminal, and they'll be coming online later this year. Next slide, please. So at Old Mannheim, where I've been showing you, typically when we've been delivering relay houses, we have a large crane out there that just cranes the relay house onto the right-of-way. The Old Mannheim relay house is actually off the physical right-of-way off to the side, and the Cumberland relay house is actually underneath a bridge deck. And so They tested at Old Mannheim a procedure about how they would actually be setting the Cumberland relay house. And it's kind of a unique procedure where they were bringing the relay house on a cart, or in this case, they did it on a truck, and they set it up on cribbing, shoring that they kind of build up around it. And then from there, next slide, please. They had created some large scale metal channels that they actually pulled the relay house over onto. And you'll see in the picture on the left, the footings that the relay house is ultimately going to land on. So they pulled the relay house over it using these channels, set it into place, and then they slowly lowered it down, jacking it down, removing the cribbing as they went. And it ultimately sits on its pure foundation on the photo on the right. Next slide, please. And in this picture, you can see it occurring, which at Cumberland, where it was actually required. So here they are setting it onto a cart on the right-of-way. Next slide, please. Then very similar to what you saw at Old Mannheim, they then moved the cart underneath the bridge deck. In the picture on the left, you can see the tile in the background. That's Cumberland Station there. We're underneath the bridge for Cumberland Avenue. And then they slid the relay house over onto its foundation using that track system of the metal channels, lowered it down, removing the cribbing, using jacks, and ultimately it landed on the foundation that it's sitting on in the picture on the right. It was kind of an interesting operation. We did it over a single track over a weekend night outage while trains were moving around on the other side as this work was occurring on the one track. Next slide, please. My next project is our transformer upgrade project. As I've been mentioning for the last couple of months, all the work is focused at Franklin Substation at this point. And since we met last month, actually set the first transformer on that site. I've been showing you some pictures of preparation for that. So if we can move to the pictures, please. Here they are. We removed the old transformer last month, and here we are prepping the pad for the new transformer, similar level of coating and protective sealant that I've shown you for the overall concrete area. Next slide. Here's the new transformer being delivered on site. They're doing some pre-testing while it's waiting to be craned into place. Next slide. And here's a new transfer being flown in off that flatbed, and it ultimately gets set in place on that empty pad and connected up. And then on the last slide here, the new transformer is being wired up and actually tested. Here they're doing a Megger test, which they check the insulation on the jacket for the wires that go between the transformer and the other equipment. Next slide. So this month I have two new projects bring forward to the board, and these are kind of unique and they're different than what we've ever done in the construction report before. So both of these are projects that are being led by our maintenance crews. And we don't typically talk about in the construction program the work we do with our in-house forces. We usually talk about the big contractor work. But every day we have CTA forces that do a pretty extensive amount of renewal and investment in our system, keeping it safe and running smoothly. The first of this is called a program that we're rebranding Refreshed and Renewed. It's an acceleration of our facilities investment that we've done for years on our rail stations, where we take a handful of stations every year. We go in, we do a very heavy kind of investment in those stations with upgraded lighting, painting. And as part of the reopening efforts of the city of Chicago, we're doing an accelerated program where we're making a mass investment in our system, touching 75% of the stations. So just over 120 stations system-wide. The stations will see varying levels of investment based on kind of their condition and the needs and the investment they've seen recently. But 35 of the stations will see kind of a deep investment where we'll go in and do a really heavy cleaning, clear out all the back of the house non-public spaces. We make sure everything's graffiti-free, it's safe. We repair any concrete or steel damage. We repaint all the high-touch surfaces, columns. We deal with all what they call typically the furniture. So we talk about benches and garbage cans and recycling bins. We upgrade all the lighting to LEDs. We remove any obstructions, make sure all the sight lines are nice and open and people feel safe and they can see around them. And we address really fundamental functions of the station and detailed defects. On the other side, over 90 stations will see just a heavy cleaning, a painting, and an upgraded lighting program. And part of the goal is that as our customers come back to our system, they're going to walk into stations that are refreshed, that are open, that are bright, and very welcoming to them. So every month I'll be updating you on this program as going forward as part of our construction report and the progress we're making. So if we could move ahead a couple slides. We've launched out kind of in the first couple stations this year with the reopening of the Cubs and White Sox season and them having attendance at their home games. We did an investment at both Addison on the red line and 35th on the red line and 35th on the green line, which are the stations that we use to serve those ballparks. We did those just in advance of their home openers. And then up on the docket, we've got Belmont on the red line and Polk on the pink line. In the upcoming months, you'll be seeing a contract I'll be bringing to the board that will help assist in the painting effort of this broader system-wide painting. We'll be doing some SPE procurements associated with painting contractors to help us paint kind of this mass amount of the system in the time frame we're looking to get it done in. So some pictures to share with you. Next slide. So here's Addison. So part of the investment in this program really is about upgrading the lighting to the modern standard LED, which is much brighter, much cleaner. It's a very white light. So here you can see kind of before pictures of Addison with the old T8s that were a little more yellow, darker sense. And here you can see the LEDs conversion on the other side, how much brighter and safer and open it feels. Next slide. And part of the big effort here is actually painting. So part of the real refreshed look is hitting those top surface touch points so that what the customer sees is that really fresh look, especially with the new bright lighting, it really pops out those surfaces. So on the left, you'll see kind of before pictures at 35th on the red line, of both the garbage can and the stairwell. And then on the right, the finished kind of cleaned up product with the fresh coat of paint on it. Next slide. Here's a lighting upgrade at 35th. So again, you can kind of see the difference that brighter LED lighting makes, as well as that fresh coat of paint, how much more the walls kind of pop and reflect that lighting with that bright white paint. Next slide, please. And then here's the LEDs updated again with that coat of paint, that touch surface difference, and you can see kind of that customer sight line, how clean it is at that point with that fresh, bright light. Next slide. And here's 35th on the green line. So here's actually something a little different when I talk about going in and doing those fundamental enhancements. Here was an area that over the years, customers or vagrants were able to get behind the stairs and shove garbage or other belongings back there. So some temp plywood was put up to prevent that. We came in, replaced the temp plywood, fabricated a new metal panel. It's much cleaner looking, seems much more natural in the face of the station, blends in with the rest of the elements, and it's no longer an eyesore. Next slide, please. And here again at SOX 35th gives you a sense of that cleaning. This is the underside of the stairwells, an area that people don't necessarily look at, but as you go by, it jumps out at you if it's rusted, if it looks unkept. This really helps clean it up, makes it pop out a little bit. My next project is another maintenance project. This is being led by our Power and Way department, and it's a track and structural renewal program. We typically renew somewhere in the ballpark of 10 to 20 miles of track every year, using our in-house forces as part of their program. And typically in advance of any elevated work we do, and I've oftentimes talked about this with the contractor program stuff, we try and do high value structural enhancements as part of that. So stuff that where the track interfaces with our structure, we try and go in and make an investment in the structure to allow prolonged life for both those track assets as well as the structure. In this case, we're actually rebuilding the Jackson Park branch of the Green Line. This is the part of the branch where the Green Line splits off and runs to Cottage Grove Station. It's about a 2-mile section of track and associated structure. The rail is about 80 years old, so almost double the useful life of that rail. It's the last of what they call 90-pound. It's the size of the rail that we have running on our revenue system. And we'll be upgrading that to the modern standard 115-pound rail, as well as replacing all the timber ties that go out there. Those ties have a useful life of about 25 years, and we are actually running them closer to 40 in this case. So, next slide. And this work will have kind of a series of single tracks and some short line cuts, but most of the work occurs under traffic, in between train movements. It's very kind of unseen to the customer other than minor delays as trains are held and people clear out of the way. And we work around kind of setting up the job during the week, getting it all prepped, and then doing big renewals on the weekends to kind of fill in all that work. So we'll move on to some pictures here. We can jump ahead here. So here's some sense of kind of the existing condition out there. It's a small stretch of track that doesn't necessarily see a ton of service compared to something like the Red Line. We do run train service every 15 minutes out there during the peak. And so we've been doing a major kind of renewal with these aged ties and worn rail. Next slide. Here you see the dedicated construction crews out there changing out these ties so that you see red boxes there. They're working under live traffic here, so that third rail is electric while they're working around it. It's part of the safety protocols and managing that work. And then you see the new renewal on the picture on the right there. That's the brand new ties. Will give us another 30 years worth of investment out of that area. Next slide. Again, here's some more of that work going on as they're kind of feathering these ties in between the rails, in between the train service. Next slide. Here's some of the associated structural work. So in this case, we're actually doing what we call top flanges. So when you think about our structure almost like an I-beam, this is the top portion of the eye, where they're actually busting out this riveted section of steel, which goes back to the 1890s, changing it out for new steel components, painting it and upgrading it as part of it. So here's the work going on with that structural work in preparation for it. And I'll be glad to take any questions at this time.
Any questions from anyone? I just want to make a quick comment that incredible work, and I'm so glad to see that it is going to be part of the marketing piece so that we can share it to the public. I think people are aware of it, but highlighting it is really important. A physical change really also changes the perception that people have, and I think they feel more safe and more comfortable when they see all this work done. So. Any other questions or comments, Director Jakes?
No questions.
Okay. Director Miller?
No questions.
Director Silva?
No questions.
Okay, great. Thanks, Bill. Good job. And thanks to the team again. Great job. I really appreciate it. I'd like to now call upon Krish Bushell and Juan Pablo Prieto, if you can make your presentation on RPM and diversity presentations.
Great. Thank you. Chris Bushell, your Chief RPM Officer. RPM Phase 1 Design Build Contract continues on budget and tight to schedule. We are still designing work, although that work is just over 80%, the design work. So it is progressing towards closeout. On the red purple bypass, you saw last time we were still framing in various pieces of steel. At this point, most of the steel is done on the new bypass, and we're really in progress with pouring concrete and various elements of the track system to come to completion in the fall or late summer, early fall for the bypass area. In addition, we are rehabbing the Ravenswood tracks in that area. So you'll see some photographs of various pieces of renovation work, not dissimilar to some of the things we just saw from Bill in the area of Jackson Park. So we also are continuing with various testing elements on the corridor signal improvements. Most of the signal work is actually in association with pre-stage. We are bringing that pre-stage work to conclusion, and we'll shortly be starting the larger structural work at Lawrence to Bryn Mawr and beginning with our 2 tracking efforts. You will see some photographs of the temporary stations that are just being completed now, and then the Lawrence to Bryn Mawr modernization, as I indicated, will be starting shortly with various demolition efforts, particularly at the north end of the structure on the east side of the tracks. We'll be demolishing various pieces of viaducts and installing some structural sheeting in between tracks 2 and 3, right in the middle of the embankment, so that we can start doing the demolition and then building the first side of the Lawrence to Bryn Mawr bridge. If we go to the next slide, please. So you'll remember this slide from last month, although it didn't have nearly the amount of concrete on it that it had. I think last time we showed it, it had some exposed steel. So at this point, or maybe formwork. So at this point, the concrete has advanced. We continue to pour the deck. We'll have a subsequent pour on top of that for the plinth and the track work. So you have a two-stage pour, if you will. So that first stage is moving north and west, as you can see from the photograph. Next slide. I mentioned Ravenswood structure rehabilitation. So we are not just repairing the steel, not just adding the bypass here, we're also repairing the existing steel. It ultimately gets painted, as well as getting new track work above, new ties and rail. Next slide. Signal testing. We've been actively at this for some weeks and are bringing the effort to a conclusion in the coming weeks. So it has been a long haul. It's fairly unusual for CTA to commission this many relay houses at once or in quick series. So I can tell you the signal testing team has been working literally day and night, and we're pleased to say that work is coming to completion for the pre-stage work. Next slide on the Bryn Mawr temp station. You've seen this slide and this station and temporary station in various various levels of stages of completeness. Here it really is for the most part done. Bryn Mawr is basically complete. We need to remove some plywood from the entrance and open it up for our customers, which we intend to do this coming weekend. Go to the next slide. Similarly for Argyle, you can see the platform is for the most part complete. We are hanging a little bit of signage and doing some other punch list work, but it's looking pretty good and we're pleased with the result. Next. And of course, our outreach continues. As we enter the first major stage of constructing the actual bridge, the Lawrence to Bryn Mawr segment, on the Lawrence to Bryn Mawr segment on the east side of the structure, we have had a number of outreach events. Open for Business has been very important. President Carter and Brian talked about the city's efforts. We are making sure that we are minimizing any impacts associated with the businesses in this area, most of which have probably been impacted more by COVID than our project. But nonetheless, we feel the timing is good and is in sync with other efforts happening at the CTA in the city. Most of our other outreach has been relative to the start of this, we call it stage A, but it's really the start of the Lawrence to Bryn Mawr bridge building effort. So we have been dealing with the various neighborhood groups, as well as kind of moving station by station in a series of virtual meetings, explaining street closures, alley closures, alternative parking, alternative garbage arrangements that the contractor is making, and otherwise bending over backwards really to communicate clearly with the community, giving them a lot of information, and most importantly, letting them sign up for various types of alerts and other things that will give them transparency as to our schedule and efforts, either as a rider or as a community member. And with that, I will turn it over to Juan Pablo and Workforce DBSB, which has also continued pretty aggressively as we get into this new stage. Lots of hiring opportunities that Juan Pablo will talk about.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, Chris. Good morning again, directors. Juan Pablo Prieto, Director of Diversity Programs, reporting out on our small business and workforce outreach activities on RPM. We continue to hold our monthly meetings with the prime contractor to discuss DBE and workforce outreach and compliance. On April 8th, Hire 360 hosted a trades informational session for individuals interested in a career in the building trades that are not members of a union. There were over 100 attendees on the call who heard from Hire 360, their resource partners, and the Carpenters Regional Council on how to prepare for entry into the trades. Walsh Floor also presented on upcoming opportunities on RPM. On April 27th, Walsh Floor hosted a virtual outreach event to present upcoming opportunities to the DBE community. We had over 50 attendees, and the Walsh Floor team covered upcoming packages through quarter 4 of this year and highlighted some 2022 opportunities. We also responded to the market feedback by including the demystifying administrative requirements and project controls portion of the presentation. Walsh Floor presented on construction work plans and submittals and pay applications to better set expectations for interested DBEs and to better prepare them to be successful on pursuing opportunities on RPM. On April 30th, the Workforce Initiatives team, hosted the latest installment of the Construction Talk series. This time we featured the Operating Engineers Local 150 and their state-of-the-art training facility in Wilmington, Illinois. The virtual event included a recorded tour of the training facility as well as interviews with the apprenticeship coordinator and apprentices from the union. The event concluded with an extensive Q&A period with representatives from Local 150's apprenticeship program and the recruiting team. Over 70 people registered with 25 total attending, including teachers from technical and community colleges that broadcasted the event to their students in their classrooms. The video from the event is now on our YouTube page, along with the other Construction Talks videos from prior months. And finally, on May 6th, we hosted another quarterly Building Small Businesses session with Walsh Floor. To date, BSB has assisted over 20 small businesses in securing over $5.5 million in capital, including CARES Act funding. The Q2 session had 9 attendees with 12 one-on-one sessions conducted afterwards. That concludes my portion of the report. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for that. Do you have any questions, Director Jakes?
No questions.
Director Miller?
No questions.
Director Silva?
No questions.
I don't have any questions, just a comment. We may have to ask Juan Pablo for his autograph soon. It seems like we're getting, reaching out to a lot of people, especially digitally. So I think that's great. That's really great work. So thank you. Continue, tell the team to continue the great work. If we do not have any other, excuse me, my voice is going. If we do not have any other questions, I would like our further business to come before our board. May I now have a motion to adjourn?
Move.
Second.
According to Wikipedia, SECA, also known as
Yeah, you're on.
Okay, now I'm on. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Why don't we do, so we have a motion to adjourn. Has it been moved?
It's been moved in second.
Been moved in second. Okay, then I'm about to take the roll call vote. Director Jakes.
Yes.
Director Miller.
Yes.
Director Silva.
Yes.
Chairman Alvarez.
Yes.
Before I announce the vote, just a reminder to Director Silva and Director Alvarez that you will be on audit call right after this meeting. Just a reminder, because it's been a long meeting. You may just like decide I'm going to get out of here. So I just want to remind you of that. Now I'll call the vote. It's 4 yes votes, and so we are adjourned. Thank you all so much.
Thanks, everybody.